I said, very nippy aircraft, capable of a maximum speed of 288 miles an hour, powered by a pair of Garrett T76 turboprops, each producing 715 horsepower. As a forward air controller and what's known as a coin aircraft, counter-insurgency. And this aircraft was developed during the 1960s to replace both of those, particularly in the forward air controller role. Prime requirement in the forward air controller role was that the crew, now it's a pilot and his observer sitting behind him, had the best possible view in sitting on top. Terrain very low, very slow, looking for bad guys. Until Gulf War I, where they were deployed to Saudi Arabia and operated over Kuwait and As I said, aside from the US Army, the US Air Force, using them in the forward air controller role, they also use them as counterinsurgency aircraft. You could carry a very wide range of weapons under the wings. Now, you might be thinking, why would a forward air controller? And so, ladies and gentlemen, the Elliots of Newbury, I beg your pardon, EON for short, primary glider. It's actually developed from a German design, the SG-38, SG standing for Schulgleiter, or school glider, training glider. And a huge number of these were built. They were used throughout the United Kingdom by the Air Training Corps and the Combined Cadet Force under the name of the Eon Eaton bungee cord, basically a giant elastic band. And when you nod your head, all your mates holding the tailplane let go and you literally get catapulted across the field. And that lays speed of 73 miles an hour, would you believe? Beautifully done. Ladies and gentlemen, Willie Hackett. Cheap to operate, an enormous DH-51, which you will also see flying in the display later on. A generation of flyers and pilots in the 20s and 30s who were there, well trained and well experienced, just when we needed them. Just landing on the main runway, Dave Bramall in the Piper Cub tug aircraft. He's taxiing into the hangars on the far side. And many thanks to Dave for taking Willie up in the the Aeon primary. Alpha 45 series in the nose of the Spitfire Mark 5C. Two very early Merlin 3 in the nose of the Sea Hurricane Mark 1B, and a Merlin 20 in the nose of the visiting Sea Hurricane Mark 1. In secret, the Hurricane was so much easier to repair than the Spitfire, because it was, if you like, a hangover from biplane technology. It was a frame construction. Originally, most of the airframe was covered in fabric, in fact, even the outer wings. Recently been proven, Hurricane shot down more enemy aircraft during the Second World War than any other type of fighter. Collections, which stood for clip wingtips, crop supercharger to give it best performance at low level. And the last word was added by some of its pilots, who described it as being clapped out as a result. Is actually a Battle of Britain veteran. It was delivered to number 253 Squadron at Curtin and Lindsey in July of 1940. That was a merchant ship with a great big cordite rocket-powered catapult on the nose, and a Hurricane sat on top of it. And what happened was that the pilot had jumped in the aircraft. Of course, when the pilot came to land, there was nowhere for him to land, and he had to bail out and hope that one of the ships would pick him up. Hurricane, which is pretty much the form you see the collection Sea Hurricane in today. Pieces would fly off, then the aircraft would turn around and start shooting at you, and he'd keep flying and fighting. Particularly the bomber aircraft, and the old 303 just wasn't cutting it on its own. Sea Hurricane just taxied in and landed, followed by the Mark 1. Sea Hurricane being flown for us today by the former chief pilot here, Roger Bailey. proven to be relatively successful. So they decided to go for the military training contract. So in 1931, the Blackburn B-2 trainer, side by side as I said, made its very first flight. Only 42 of these aircraft were built between 1931 and 1942. The aircraft you're looking at here actually built in 1936 and is the only airworthy Blackburn B-2 on the planet. Underneath him, the Spitfire Mark V just landed, taxied in. Until recently, he was one of the test pilots on the F-35 Lightning, the new fighter that's just entered service with the Royal Air Force and Royal Navy. That's quite fun because originally they had Tiger Moth and a Gypsy 3 producing 120 horsepower in the Blackburn B-2. Not as such. But the other thing they did was they put a great big pole under the fuselage with what essentially was a scythe on the end. And this was a fearsome weapon called the Paraslasher. And the idea was the Germans were intending to drop parachute troops in front of their invasion force. And the Tiger Moths would fly amongst the parachutists as they came to Earth. There's still a lot of debate about whether or not trainer aircraft should be side by side or tandem, front and rear. Of course, if you're front and rear, the instructor can hit you on the back of the head if you get it wrong. And if you're side by side, you can crack you over the knuckles with a ruler, which is what Mark used to do. Seriously, the just look at that. Now you've got a great big transport aircraft here. In a wingspan of just shy of 100 feet, 95 foot 6 inches, and you can stand it on its ear like that. And that's what the Dakota is all about. It's manoeuvrable, it's tough as old boots, and you can land it and take it off on a very, very short strip indeed, even with 3 tons of whatever you need to stuffed in the back. Now later on this year, of course, one of the things the Dakota was most famous for was D-Day, the invasion in Normandy, Operation Market Garden at Arnhem, the attempted crossing of the Rhine, and Operation Dragoon, the actual crossing of the Rhine further down, transporting supplies out to the Chindits in Burma. Basically, all over North Africa, all over the world, the Dakota became the workhorse of the Second World War. Still in use, and believe it or not, still back in production today. If you go to a place called Basler in Wisconsin, they'll slowly replacing Dakotas all over the world because there's still thousands of these flying, doing their day job. Local transport, bush transport. The Antarctic Survey relies on these aeroplanes to get in and out of Antarctica on and off ice strips using skis on the undercarriage. This particular aircraft, built in 1905, based out of Dunsfold in Surrey. On the 6th of June. And I believe at the moment there's something like about 85 aircraft that have been pretty much guaranteed to be there. And that's going to be an incredible sight. That gunship role was later taken over by the Fairchild C-119 Packet, which could carry more and heavier guns, and of course is still fulfilled today by the Lockheed C-130 Hercules. A special squadron known as Spectre, based down at Hulbert Field in the panhandle of Florida, and they still carry on that role today, and very, with the Royal Air Force. Same guy, Henry Philip Folland. 747 Gladiators were built for the Royal Air Force and a number of other air forces worldwide. Two Royal Air Force squadrons. Gladiator squadrons are turning what was already something of an iconic aircraft in the aviation community into an international icon. Very quickly became, HU-1A, typical US Army. They initially called it the HU-1A, which somebody shortened immediately to Huey, and even though the designation changed to UH-1A, the name stuck, and Huey was forevermore. It's a new tactic of what they call air mobility. So troops will be flown in to a remote location by Hueys. They will be supported by Hueys. And they're also in service in two other versions as well. One of them known as dust-offs. Now the dust-offs were the medical evacuation, the helicopter, hospital helicopter medical evacuation transport versions. They would land into the same drop zones and evacuate any wounded from the area. Obviously, if need be, the troop transports could fulfill that role as well, just get the wounded out of there. Well, the Huey departing off slot, he's heading back to his home at North Weald. And the Dakota departing off, he's heading back home to Dunsfold down there in Surrey. Many thanks to them for bringing the aircraft here today. Dakota, of course, being flown by Andrew Dixon, many thanks to him. Can carry a wide variety of rocket projectiles, mostly smoke rockets under those wings. And it would mark the target on the ground with a smoke rocket for 500 metres or whatever, and that's where you put your bombs. Well, hopefully that's where you put your bombs. Interesting too that both these aircraft from different manufacturers are powered by engines from the same company. Piper L4 powered by another Continental engine, the 0200, gives it a maximum speed of 76 knots, according to this. Basically, you take a landing ship, a tank landing ship, that sort of thing, I mean, one with a bow door, which it runs. Yeah. Is that the one? Very gentle display there. Many thanks to our chief engineer here, actually, Jean Munn, for flying the Piper L4 Grasshopper, flying his 01 Bird Dog. So many thanks to them both for bringing those very rare aircraft, actually, the 01A, even though we're lucky enough to have two of them here. I was saying about the French Air Force use, it wasn't just in Southeast Asia, they also use them in Algeria, various other of their colonies, counterinsurgency operations. And de Havilland, as I said, no fool, also owned a company called the Air Disposal Company, or Air Disco for short, and they took a lot of World War I V8 engines, one of which, the reconditioned version, was used in this machine, an Air Disco V8. The H-51 landed at the far end of the field, many thanks to Bob Morgan for bringing that aircraft, very rare aircraft, to us today. Lovely to see it flying. Very interesting aeroplane, this, designed by F.G. Miles, who of course went on to found his own Miles Aircraft Company. The much larger, much heavier airframe, actually, it must be said, on the Catalina, means it's only got a maximum speed of 184 miles an hour. Best loiter speed, in fact, is 105 miles an hour. That's where you get the most efficiency out of both the engine and the airframe. This particular one wasn't built as a Catalina, but as a Canso A amphibian for the Royal Canadian Air Force. capable of carrying 4 1,000-pound depth charges under the wings for anti-submarine work. And very typically in the tit-for-tat nature of the U-boat war. So we started sending out long-range patrol aircraft equipped with depth charges, so the U-boats started putting more and more anti-aircraft guns on the top of their U-boats, and instead of diving to get away from the aircraft, they'd stay and fight it out. And consequently we started losing some of the Catalinas, so we started putting guns in the noses of the Catalinas that the pilots could fire to keep the gunners' heads down on the U-boat. As you can see very clearly, this aircraft an amphibian, retractable undercarriage. First 3 marks of the Catalina, first 3 models rather, were all flying boats. They had no undercarriage at all, except for one you could plug on and tow it out of the water on for maintenance. This particular one, both the PBY 5 and 6 were both fitted with retractable undercarriages and therefore were amphibians. One of these aircraft operating at a Midway Strawberry 19, as its call sign was very famous for detecting the Japanese fleet. I don't know about you, but I've never seen a Catalina. It's not every day you see an aeroplane that size land here.
Do stop eating sometimes.
Right down the far end, he's going to be departing very shortly. Last photo opportunity to get Kathleen in the air. As taking centre stage, we have the Chipmunk, designed by Henry Millicer, designed and built by Percival Aircraft before they became part of the Hunting Group, so strictly speaking it's a Percival design, intended as a replacement for the Percival Prentice 4-seat trainer, this particular airframe, so they put it in a grey, green and silver colour scheme. Bogus RAF markings on, and that's the way it's stayed ever since, because it never did actually go to Oman. Now it's interesting that it didn't just replace the Percival, went to full power. If you weren't careful, the Balliol will actually slow roll just because of the torque from the engine, and that could really ruin your day as a student. So to go from 550 horsepower, gives the Provost a maximum speed of 174 knots, really quite nippy. And a team of Provosts. But if you look at the aircraft closely, if you keep the tailplane exactly as it is, but take the tail wheel off, stick a nose wheel on it, move the cockpit right forward, you've got a jet provost, and that's exactly what they did. They put the Viper jet engine in the rear fuselage, move the cockpit forward to balance it, put a nose wheel on it, and that's how the piston provost became the jet provost. Many, many thanks to him indeed. Dearden just getting airborne, taking the nightmare. Built a hump in the fuselage over the top of the guns, and that's what gave the Camel its name. They built, would you believe, 5,490 Sopwith Camels. You fire them forward, hopefully into a balloon, where they cause the gas inside to explode. Squadrons in Mesopotamia and the Middle East. As well.
The British government.
Just landed at the far end there in the Camel. Roger Bailey, many thanks to him for bringing the aircraft to us today. But that's pretty much the whole history of the time. Very famous aeroplane indeed. Now if we're lucky enough to fly it later, you'll see the Avro Tri 504, and in this aeroplane he found tremendous success. Went on for?
Yeah, I'll just give it on the way out. All right.
Avro 500 first flew in 1912, the Avro 500. Now it was in this guise that 4 of these aircraft from the Royal Naval Air Service set out to bomb the Zeppelin sheds at Friedrichshafen to actually attack the Zeppelin threat at its source. They were successful. They damaged 2 of the hangars extensively, started a fire. Just as the Sopwith triplane gets airborne, the Bristol M1C being towed back in. Many thanks to Rob Millenship for bringing that aircraft today. Sopwith Camel. First flying on the 28th of May 1916. Solid triplane again, powered by a rotary engine this time. 150 Shuttleworth triplanes were built, mostly for the Royal Naval Air Service. Number 8 Squadron, Royal Naval Air Service, later 208 when it amalgamated with the Royal Flying Corps to become the Royal Air Force, operated the triplane. The trouble is, longer wings give you a slower roll rate, so you had a third wing. It was that simple. There's a lot of people who think that this aircraft was a copy of the Fokker triplane. Actually, it was the other way round. The Fokker triplane had been shot down. Original armament of the aircraft was a single Vickers 303 water-cooled machine gun mounted on top of the fuselage. To see this many of them fly, particularly this early in the season. Say quite remarkable to see so many of them. What is also interesting about this particular aircraft, in 1 month at the end of the Second World War, it did 400 hours just taking people from Guernsey, from Jersey, I beg your pardon. He spent 400 hours flying between Luton and Guernsey. That was what he was doing. Just getting people off the rock, so to speak, at the end of the thing. Well, many thanks to Jean Munn for flying that aircraft. Still remarkable to see our single Westland Lysander. Remarkable designs over the side. Of course, before they got their radio sorted out, of course. Fired by the pilot. He also had another one in the rear cockpit for self-defence, fired by the observer. And it was in that role that we sent 2 squadrons of these to France, 1939. And we discovered very quickly the aircraft fire. Now, if you remember the 2 aircraft you saw earlier, the L4 84 knots. If anything, if you like. It was just too much aeroplane for the role. But they were also fitted the stub wings that had carried bombs, started to carry dinghy packs, and they'd go out looking for downed aircrew during the Battle of Britain in the English Channel and drop dinghies to them. The beginning of the runway was, and one torch further down to give them depth perception as they approached to land. Of course, until you landed, you didn't know who was holding the torches. Yeah. So if the Germans had found somebody in the resistance and broken them, we could be in real trouble. So, ladies and gentlemen, from the right,